Hi everybody, Manucha here from Moms and Crafters, and I'm here with a super cute ear dry clay project, a sweet little pomegranate drip tray. And now the intention was to make this as a honey tray to place your honey jar on for Rosh Hashanah or the Jewish New Year, but of course you can use it for anything. So we're starting with ear dry clay. I am using Das brand, all links in the description. And we flattened it out, and now we're rolling it out between two levelers. Those are sort of height guides that help you make it a specific height and even. And we are using a template that you could also download in the link in the description. And we're making sure that we're rolling it out large enough to fit the template and adding extra clay over there at the top as needed to make sure that it fits the template. And of course, make sure everything's smooth and well connected, and then trace the template using a clay dedicated knife. Remove the template and remove your extra clay, cleaning things up as you go along. You can really use this process with any shape, but I am providing a template for a pomegranate so that it is a Rosh Hashanah theme. When you're done, you're going to take another piece of clay. I start with the extra clay that I trimmed off the edges, but if you need more, use more. And you're rolling it into a super duper long snake. Now, this snake has to fit around the entire rim of your pomegranate. So you're rolling it out as evenly as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfect, and kind of measuring it loosely as you go along to make sure that it'll fit, and rolling it out larger as needed. Now, this process is slightly more complicated than, for example, if you were to do it pinch pot style, where you sort of just fold up the edges a little bit to make that rim. However, we're doing it this way because when we have a very specific shape, it's harder to maintain the integrity of the shape doing it pinch pot style. So you can definitely try it that way. Now, to connect clay, you do want to first distress the edges using this little Reiki tool. You're creating sort of a surface for it to connect with. And we're going to go around the entire edge of our pomegranate slab, and we are going to distress it. Don't overdo it. Fix the shape as needed as you go along, but definitely make it nice and distressed. Don't flatten it or anything, but it should give you a little bit of a surface to work with. And again, especially at the top, you might need to really fix the shape as you go along. Now you're going to take some slip. Now, if you don't have slip, it's basically, a little bit of clay sort of diluted into a paste. So prepare that in a jar, and you could save it from time to time. And you're applying your slip around the whole edge. I'm using a thin paintbrush, but honestly, it would have been much better to just use like a craft stick or something. And we're carefully applying our rim around the edge. Now, it won't really hold in place because you're putting a huge pile of wet glue. So clearly it's going to slide around, but this is just the first step. So go ahead, add your slip, and place your snake, your clay rope around the entire rim. Now, when you get to sort of the crown of the pomegranate, that's where you might have to get, a little more careful. You're folding it carefully around the edge, ensuring that you're not really sliding things too far out of place. And again, working bit by bit to place your rope around the edge. Now, when we sort of meet the beginning, you're again going to want to connect it by distressing the connecting points of the sort of the beginning and end of the rope, and adding slip there as well. I actually did not do a good enough job by this, and my final project, it's not really properly connected. Now we are taking a silicone tip tool. Now, again, all the supplies are linked in the blog post in the description of this video. So go ahead and check out my recommendations. And we're sort of blending the ends together. Now, I'm reminding you that your glue's wet, so it doesn't hold in place naturally. You need to hold it in place with your fingers. I do recommend having a jar of water that you can use to smooth things out as you go along and work through it, fixing things you see. I moved that out of position by mistake, but I'm repositioning it. So fix things as you go along until you're really satisfied with the shape of how things are turning out. You can use your fingers, you can use tools, whatever feels most natural and most comfortable. But remember, once your clay dries, you won't really be able to rework it. So make sure you're happy. Now, to dry this, you're definitely going to want to, flip it over midway, do it at least 2 nights, depending on your conditions and your environment. When you do flip it over to dry on the back, make sure you add a little bit of support in the center there, because it's not going to be fully cured and it could like sag a little bit and crack as you dry it. So now that we fully dried it, we are gently sanding a little bit. Look, you can take a rotary tool and really reshape this and make it super duper polished, but we're not doing that. We're just, removing the really bad, burrs from around the edges, and cleaning it up a little bit with coarse grit sandpaper. So go ahead, do that, give it a few minutes, give it however long you'd like. And our next step is we're going to paint it. Now, there are many different ways that you can finish air dry clay. And I decided that this is a type of project that really warrants watercolors. So we're using a soft bristle brush and a simple watercolor palette, and we're pulling out the reds, the purples, a touch of orange, a touch of yellow, a touch of green, and we are painting it. Now, again, you don't want to overwork watercolors with air dry clay because you're going to re-wet your clay, and you will need to make sure that it dries totally and completely when you're done this step. So I did not show you the whole process. I did overwork mine a little bit and ran into some complications. But you do want to use a lot of water so that it gives you this blended effect. It will absorb into any cracks or blemishes you have over there. Once your watercolors are dry, you're going to tape off the edges. And I did this because I didn't love how the watercolors looked on the edges. So obviously, if you like it, you don't need to do this part. But I did decide to gild the edges for that reason. So we're using small pieces of tape and we're going around the circle. Anything that's exposed will be painted. Anything that's not, from the rim, anything that's not exposed will not be. So make sure you really do this carefully and use a craft knife as needed around the crown of your pomegranate. When it is fully taped, you're going to simply go ahead. I used this really pretty brushed metal gold paint and paint around the edges. Now, I did do 2 layers. I did not show you 2 layers because that would just be too boring. And I went around the edges, including the sides, with a flat paintbrush. You can try this with silver. You can try this with other metals or even just with a solid color. Do whatever you'd like. When the first layer is dry, paint your second layer. And when the second layer is actually still wet, you're going to want to carefully pull off the painter's tape. If you wait until it's dry, then sometimes you end up pulling off some of the paint too. And finally, we are sealing it with a layer of dishwasher safe Mod Podge. You don't have to use the dishwasher safe formulation, but I find that it's a great waterproof formulation that at the very least allows me to hand wash it afterwards. I recommend doing at least 2 layers and making sure you catch every single spot because otherwise it'll get into the clay if you try washing it, if there's any spots missing. So it does need about 28 days to fully cure, but you'll be able to have it wiped clean, before that. But definitely let it dry fully at the very least before using it. And that's it. Your dry clay pomegranate honey drip tray is complete. You can use these for tea light holders if you use a flame resistant clay. You can use this for so many things. You can use it as a catchall, but of course, my favorite way to use it is as a honey drip tray for Rosh Hashanah. And I have other fun crafts that I have shared for Rosh Hashanah that include air dried clay or just coloring. And so make sure you check out my channel and make sure you check out the links at jewish.momsandcrafters.com. And of course, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe to my channel for more fun ideas like this one, and comment if you have any questions about this tutorial.